Hey everyone, on today's episode of Hubris Syndrome, we are talking about GOTYs with the Allies. Strap in. We're kicking off with my main man, Bradley Ellis. How you doing today, Brad?
Good, man. Feeling good.
We are halfway through the year that never ends, 2020.
Long year.
Long year. Thankfully, the video games have not stopped coming out.
True.
So, last week I talked about my GOTYs. Today, since I have some allies on, what is your main GOTY of the year so far and why?
Oh, simple answer. You know it. Yeah, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake. Without a question, dude.
Of course it is.
Without a question, man. So, as many people know, Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games of all time. And to get this remake... So one thing I really like about this remake, Huber, is that I respect some remakes, how they do things differently. But what I like about this game is it took chances. It did a lot different. Not necessarily just even in gameplay and presentation, but story, how it's executing it. Now, that's a controversial subject in story, but I'm into them doing weird stuff, man. Stuff that keeps me on, whoa, what? Like, keeping me surprised.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite surprises that changed up?
Well, I mean, just all the extra stuff so far with Avalanche, like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge, I was really into. I don't want to talk, a lot of it is super spoilery.
For sure.
If you've played the game, you know, it's fucking crazy, yeah. But I'm into it. I'm down. Combat, man, how they, translated that, the ATB system into a more action-oriented way, and it feels so good still. I think it's one of Final Fantasy's best combat systems in a long time. Long time.
The combat for sure surprised me, Brad, because last week I did bring up Final Fantasy VII as well, because it's one of my GOTYs, and I was nervous, because I love turn-based battles, man. I love the strategy, and I was nervous that it was just going to be kind of like a Kingdom Hearts situation, which I really like Kingdom Hearts combat.
Oh, but you want it to be a little different. This is kind of like a marriage in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
Because you still have that element of pausing, and you can look at your moves and just thinking okay, what I want to do right here, setting up combos, have them do this, and switch this person, have them do that, switch that person, have them do that to do this huge thing at the end and do tons of damage. So the strategy's still there, even though it's very action oriented.
What was your favorite boss fight, Bradley Ellis?
Boss fight? Yeah. Let's see.
I will say mine, like I said last week, mine is the Hell House.
Hell House? Yeah, that's
obsessed.
An insanely good fight for taking this weird enemy that everyone was making fun of, how are they going to put this in the remake? And they put it in the remake, and it is an insanely awesome boss fight.
Yeah.
Just because of the legacy and all of it, for me, I think it's Genova. Genova fight in Shinra Towers. It's not necessarily the craziest mechanical fight, but the idea of it and what's going down and the music kicking in at the right moments.
Yeah.
That really got me.
What was that like, Brad? Because, Resident Evil 2 is my favorite game of all time, and I got a remake, so I obviously had some intense feelings booting that game up.
Yeah.
What were some of the feelings you got, man, just playing through this? This game means so much to you.
Crazy. So when I was playing for review, I remember the first part where you get to sector 7 or whatever, you get off the train, and the music, I looked up at the sky, and I see the plate above me, and the lights shining down and the music kicking in. I got choked up for a second, where I was like, dude, this is fucking real. And how well they capture that feeling of just being under this huge, oppressive plate blocking the sun from you, man.
Yeah.
And everything just feeling massive. I was like, yes, it nails that sense of scope I wanted from Midgar.
Nice. What, to wrap it up, man, what was your favorite moment or just your favorite thing about Final Fantasy VII Remake?
My favorite thing, I guess one of my favorite things is how well the characters are portrayed. I was a big fan of how they presented all the characters throughout the game. I think they did an excellent job of presenting Cloud as being this guy who's actually kind of an idiot and very insecure about himself, but he puts up this front to be a tough guy. And everyone kind of looks at him, but he's actually super vulnerable and he's got his own things. Tifa, 10 out of 10. Barrett, of course, excellent. I loved Marlene in this game.
Yeah,
I loved Marlene and Barrett's vibe going on. just all the character portrayals. I think they nailed it.
Yeah. Looking forward to part 2, Brad.
Oh my God, yes.
Were you bummed that they just did a part 1, or did it feel right for you? Because that was controversial.
I think for the scope they want to go with and the amount of storytelling they want to do, they had to do that, especially with the technology they had and the amount of time they had. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, it would have been sick to have, like, an insanely big game all, like, in just one package, you know, man, like, a huge game. But I was pretty happy with what they expanded upon, like, diving deeper and just giving me more context. And selfishly, I have something to look forward to still.
Yes.
Like, it's not over.
It's not over. We get to board that hype train for the next however many years it takes for part 2 to come out.
Yeah, so, like, I still have plenty to look forward to.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
Our next guest is the one, the only Daniel Bloodworth. How you doing, Blood?
I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. It was up till after 4 o'clock working through these previews, and then wake up to, like, finalize the previews and then go straight into the press conference and all that craziness. But hey.
Viewers at home, the only reason you see Easy Allies footage is because of Daniel Bloodworth. He makes it all possible. So shout out.
I keep us from breaking the rules, honestly. There's so many times when I'm like, oh yeah, we've got this, and then like, oh, but forward me the document just in case. I'm like, oh crap, we got to change that. We went over the time.
So Bloodworth, what has been your personal game of the year so far for 2020?
Okay, so you have me at a disadvantage in 2 ways. Number 1, I somehow have been playing other weird stuff and not the things that I think I would pick for game of the year. So there's a lot of the big boys that I've not touched at all.
Okay.
Number 2 disadvantage, even the thing that I'm thinking right now, I'm only like halfway through the game, if that.
It counts.
So, right now, the thing that I'm feeling is Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Nice. This is still on my backlog, Blood. Tell me what you love about it, Blood, because I know you always, I feel like, are sneaking in a Metroidvania. I feel like you love this genre.
I do love the genre, for sure. I don't feel like I'm sneaking them in that often, but I guess that's the way it's coming across. What's funny to me is I feel like honestly, I feel like I'm having the Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze moment that everyone else had. To where it's like, I got that it was a cool game, but I really didn't totally get the over exuberant joy for it. Whereas with this game, it's like, I feel like I'm getting that kind of sense of it, and I feel like in some ways, like, they've actually maybe borrowed some Tropical Freeze elements for some gameplay mechanics and stuff.
That's a good thing.
But like, I'm not sure. Is anyone else on the same page with me? Is anyone else feeling that way about this game, which is a quote-unquote simple side-scrolling platformer, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like, the emotions that it brings out are beyond what you would normally expect from a game in this genre, while also being pretty light in terms of dialogue. I feel like the music plays a lot into that. I feel like there's a lot going on in, again, back to like a Tropical Freeze comparison, the way that the world is constructed and the way that environments feel.
Nice.
And then I feel like, in addition to like how the first Ori was, the way that your movement, the rhythm of chaining together different abilities, you've got a dash and what they call a bash, where it's kind of like the Castlevania thing where you kind of like lob on to like a point and then like slingshot yourself somewhere else.
Oh, like Guacamelee 2 has that. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's a really good feeling. And the one thing I will say is I do feel like there's a bit of a hump that you have to get through to really see what makes this game feel as good as it does.
Okay.
Because there are abilities that you get, and there's upgrades. There's a lot of choice in upgrades, and it has kind of like a system like Hollow Knight where you kind of equip like badge type things. You only have so many slots, so you have to decide like, okay, do I want to focus on like attack, or do I want to focus on how much health I want to have, or different elements like that. But I feel like at first, like, because you don't have as much mobility, then and enemies can feel pretty tough and feel like you have to like put a lot of hits in to just get through an area, it can feel a bit slower. But then as you get stronger, as you get more mobile, then it starts to feel like it opens up a lot more. And I think the real point for me is there's like this water mill kind of dungeon-ish area. And I feel once you complete that, then it's like, okay, now you see like what this game is going for. Like how complex some of the platforming can be, some of the back and forth between like inside and outside of that area, and using your abilities and discovering new like hidden collectibles and stuff like that.
Blood, you've immediately made me want to jump the line in my backlog because I love the first one, obviously, Ori and the Blind Forest, one of the greats. So I'm super excited to hop into this. To close it out, I do have one last question for you. I would love your insight into this. We rarely see smaller games and indie games get the Game of the Year award. You know, they're usually nominated. You'll see them nominated, but it usually goes to the big AAA ones. I know maybe Tetris Effect won Eurogamer's Game of the Year recently. Or,
right.
Like, it happened.
Well, back when Telltale's The Walking Dead, I remember got some big awards.
And
such,
Journey. Like, obviously it happens, but, you know, we primarily see the big AAA games get it. Why do you think that is? Do you think the smaller games are just dismissed more easily?
I think that may be part of it, and you know, like I said, something like a side scroller where, you know, the characters are far away and all of that kind of thing can kind of play into that, rather than like having this emotional connection to an actor doing a bunch of mocap. But I do think that's sort of part of it, is that like it's a lot harder for an indie game to kind of stretch beyond those boundaries, right? To like really feel like, it has to feel like you're getting something very different and creative, rather than just pushing the boundaries in a more technical level, because they don't have that kind of budget and that kind of team to work with. So yeah, you're not going to get them, you know, breaking the boundaries of physics or audio or any of those kinds of things as much. So it really has to be something that's very out of left field.
It's an interesting take, Bloodworth. It's shooting to the top of my list. Ori and the Will of the Wisps. I will be back with a report of my own in the near future, so look forward to that.
Nice.
Thank you so much to Brad and to you, Mr. Bloodworth, for joining me on this Syndrome about GOTYs. And we'll be back next week with 2 more allies as they dive into their favorite games of the year so far. If you like what you saw, you can check us out on Patreon and Twitch. And we are Easy Allies. Thanks for watching.